Hey everybody, so now the class really gets started. This is week 2, and very important that you have everything from week 1 behind you, that all the systems are up and running, that you know how to use the blog. You've got your PhotoThing account established, you've posted a picture there, and you have Photoshop installed, and here we go. So the concept for this week is to go out shooting, and that concept all photo students have to do is to take yourself physically out into the world and go shooting. I am not sending you to the library to do research papers and or study for tests. What we're doing is walking around with our camera and looking very carefully at the built environment this week. That means not nature, but structures. And you could live in a big city like Hartford, New Haven, or Bridgeport, or you could live in a tiny little town like Reading, where I do, and find everything that you need to do this. So I thought I would go through some student work from 2 summers ago, just picked randomly, to show you some of the good and not so good things that they've done. First and foremost, I have to say that photography is all about light. The word photography itself means writing with light. Photo is the root of photography. Photos is Greek for light, and graphis, for the graphy part of photography, is to draw or to write. So drawing or writing with light is the essence of what we do. So I'm trying to get your head wrapped around the idea of looking at shapes and looking at light and not taking pictures of things per se. So the amateur goes on a trip and they record all the monuments and all the quote important things kind of from a distance. They don't really get involved. Oh, there's the Eiffel Tower, click, or there's the Washington Monument, click, and it's not a very interesting picture. So to kick it up a big notch then is to not be so concerned about what the object is so much as how it's using the object as a way to modulate light and create shape and design. And this is at the foundation of all good photography. It doesn't matter what you do in the future. Learning to get a handle on shape and design is important. So anyway, let me flip through a few of the good, the bad, and the ugly here. Of student work, as I said, just picked randomly, and this is just a tiny portion of things. I do want you to get out there and shoot for a good hour of focused time with your camera, and I want you to look at filling the frame, and I want you to pay attention to how light and shape is working in the frame. So just kind of randomly, let's go through some of these. This one is very good. This would be like A level now. Because the person has this enclosed space. It's like a puzzle. There's no sky, which is good. And the shapes in this space work together harmoniously. And if it was just the bike without the shadow, it would be like, okay. But observing the way the materiality of the shadow interacts with the structure and the way the light is working in here, it makes this quite a good one. Okay, let me go to another one here. This is very good too. It's simple. You're walking along and you're getting close to the fence. It's out of focus on the right here, so I would have darkened that a little bit, but through this main circle we see the light of this brick edge of the building, and the way this perspective falls off is pretty good. And there's a repetition going on here, which is another design term. So this is everywhere. It's just a matter of seeing it and getting in. Okay, it's not about sort of City Hall or the Taj Mahal or the Empire State Building. It's everyday, right under your nose stuff. This happens to be the courthouse, I think, in New Haven, and this is also a good one. Notice they're filling the frame, as I mentioned. So that means it's not trying to capture the whole building. That would be really boring, but using elements in the building to work with light and shape and design. Again, we have repetition from the columns. we have golden hour light, which is the best time to shoot, by the way, which is near sunset or late in the afternoon. So that notice the beautiful long shadows and the quality of the light that's here. One small fix in architectural photography, just as an edit, it's pretty good this way. I wouldn't complain too much. But if we were submitting this maybe for an architectural kind of thing, we would want these columns to be vertical. And there's a free transform tool in Photoshop. I'm in Photoshop here, and I have my tools off the frame. The shortcut is Control-T, and if I hold down the Control key, I get to skew this out, and I can just stretch this like that and straighten up these columns like that. When you have horizons in your pictures later on, we'll also make sure that your horizons are level. And then I hit Enter, and here's the before on that, and here's the after. Notice the intentionality of how we're working with the columns here and how things are straightened out in the after. Okay, good shot here. Let's keep moving. Okay, so this is a terrible shot. And why is that? First of all, it's buzzed, meaning it's not sharp. I'll show you that. It's extremely not sharp, and the reason is I would bet anything that the person was driving in their car and just jammed the camera out the window and went snap without really taking the time to walk around. Secondly, there's sky here, so the camera is exposing for all this light in the background and way underexposing the foreground. Thirdly, where's the light on the subject? The focal point and the light don't coincide. Fourth, here's the example of taking a picture of a monument rather than getting in close to look at details or to think about the composition of the frame as a whole. So yeah, this is a bad one. And this is a mediocre to bad. It technically is hanging in there okay. I mean, it's sharp at least, and the person thought about composition. But it's just taking a picture of stuff out there again. The brightness on the pavement is distracting. This is planted in the frame in a way that is just not so interesting. So, however, they could have moved in close and maybe looked at some shapes and relationships on this bench, or maybe zoomed in and gotten in close and looked at some details on the castings here on the clock to improve this. Let's keep moving. Here's another shot that involves close-up of the building and columns. Again, as we look up at a building like this, the verticals tend to keystone, we call that. And to fix that again, you use the free transform tool and skew it out holding down the Control key. And it's not a given that you always have to do this, but let's just take a look at the before and after. So here it is, somewhat straightened out, not completely. I left a little bit of the skew. And here's the before on that. Yeah, you don't really need to do that in this case, but it's just something to know about. The light is working well. We have a focal point. We have repetition. It's good. And this is bad. Pretty much for the reason I gave in the last one. We're including the sky, and look how it's blown out. We call that blown out. There's no light on the building to speak of. It's a bit fuzzy, and it's dark, and it's boring. So, but if you're interested in the building, then you take a second and walk across the street. Don't rely on your zoom, but actually use your body and move in and start looking at stuff here and finding light, finding design, finding relationships. This one is a really bad one. In terms of the exposure, I like it in terms of the composition, but what's going on here? Do you see how this archway is blown out? That means that there's no visible detail at all, and that's a bad thing in photography. What's going on is the light meter is exposing for the deep shadow inside the stairwell here, and way overexposing this, which has sunlight on it. So this is a common theme to avoid. What we want to do is expose for this and allow that to go dark. And then we can use Photoshop to bring that up a little bit. But once it's blown out, you cannot get any detail on it. That just can't happen. So let's see if I go into I brought up something called levels here, and this is a little bit of a heads up about how to start editing your pictures. This shows a histogram of all the tones from deep black, which there are none here, so I can pull that up, and to pure white on this end. And notice this preponderance of pixels right up against the wall here. That's the blown out area here, and when it's all the way up to the right like that, no matter what you do, you cannot bring the detail back. It's gone. You see what I can do? I can darken this, but this is still blown out. So learning to adjust your levels on each of your pictures and focus the light and work with the light carefully is kind of the main item that I'm going to be teaching you about this term. So let me hit cancel on that. So good composition, good subject, bad exposure. And the way to compensate for this is your camera has an exposure compensation. And what you do is you underexpose by a couple of stops. And you keep underexposing until this comes into correct exposure. Another option is to move in and expose the camera, point the camera at the bright column, and then lock the exposure down. Usually there's a button to do that, and then you can move the camera off and compose normally. Okay. This one has some potential, but I think it's too much in the category of something, the whole thing, the whole building out there, rather than moving in and thinking about composition better. I don't like cropping as a rule, but in this case I'm going to say that crop would be a good idea. Oops, let me escape that. I have to clear the presets on my crop tool. Okay. And let's just see what would happen if I crop this in close. I like the little figures on the bridge here, like that. I'm going to hit enter, and we can blow this up a little bit just to see. And notice how the little figures and the enclosed space and the reflective, the sky reflected in the glass here makes a much better composition than that. Okay. So, and lastly, this one is very good in terms of thinking about light again and structure. And the thing that's weakening right now is this bright side here. So, taking the lasso tool, I'm just going to kind of go around that a little bit. And I click a button. I'm not really showing you how to edit yet, so we'll get to that in another video. But I'm feathering out the selection, and then I'm darkening it using image adjustment, brightness, contrast here. That's menu item image, and then adjustment, then brightness, contrast. I'm just quieting down that corner a little bit. And what that does is it brings your eye more into the center of the composition. Here's, okay, alrighty. Good, I've gone on long enough. I hope that's given you some ideas about what to look for and how to go shooting. And see you on the blog.